Hello, in this short tutorial, we're going to look at one of the key features of spoken English, stress. We'll focus on two levels, word stress and sentence stress, and how they shape clarity, rhythm, and meaning in English. So first, word stress. That's about which syllable in each word carries the main emphasis. Every multi-syllable word in English has a fixed stress pattern. It's part of that word, it doesn't change. A stressed syllable is louder, longer, and slightly higher in pitch than the others. Take the word photograph. The stress is on the first syllable, photograph. If you move the stress, the word sounds wrong to a native speaker or can mean something different. In longer words, you often hear two levels of stress, a primary stress, the main one, and sometimes a secondary, slightly lighter stress. So, for example, photography. The stress shifts and that can change the meaning of a word. Word stress can make a similar word mean two different things. For example, to present or a present. Different stress, different meaning, even though the spelling is the same. This leads me to talk about something really important called the schwa. It's the most common sound in English. It is a weak, neutral vowel sound that appears in unstressed syllables. In photograph, the second and third syllables are reduced. They don't keep strong vowel sounds. They become something like photograph. That t sound, is a schwa sound. English spelling doesn't help here. Different letters can produce the same schwa sound. About, taken, memory, support. The vowels look different, but they reduce in the same way because they are unstressed. This reduction is systematic. It's part of how English works, and it's a major reason why spoken English sounds different from written English, which does make things a bit more confusing to you. Word stress is really important. It affects clarity. In fact, it's one of the main reasons why we may misunderstand a non-native speaker. Listeners rely on word stress to recognize the words quickly. It's a feature of those words. If the stress is misplaced, the word becomes much harder to process. And when the stress is actually wrong, vowels that should be reduced, staying too strong, for example, we may fail to recognize the word. So that leads to misunderstandings. That's why you have to pay attention to it when you're learning how to speak English. Let's talk about sentence stress now. Sentence stress works at a different level. Instead of focusing on syllables, it focuses on whole words. Unlike word stress, sentence stress is flexible. So it's not fixed, it depends on meaning and context, and you have some poetic license even. In most sentences, content words carry the stress. Nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and function words, articles, prepositions, auxiliary, pronouns, they're usually reduced and can also become schwa sounds. So, for example, and becomes and, to becomes t, and becomes and becomes con. Native speakers are constantly doing this. It creates the rhythm of English, that sense of movement. English is a stress-timed language, and we learnt about this literally in our mother's wombs. So it's just something, it's a feature that we can do naturally. You need to learn about it, especially a sentence stress can change meaning. So if you listen to these sentences, I could say, I didn't take it. That means someone else did. It infers that. I didn't take it. I did something else. Or I didn't take that. That means that I took something else. So the words can stay similar or the same. The meaning really changes through stress. There are different types of sentence stress. In fact, it's a whole thing. There are a few key patterns that are really interesting to experiment with. There's contrastive stress, which highlights a difference. For example, I said cat, not rat. There's something called nuclear stress, which is the main stress in a sentence. It's normally near the end, and it does carry the key information. But then we can play with something called emphatic stress just to add emphasis. For example, I'm so tired. Rhythmic stress appears as well, where we can use a kind of poetic license. And sentence stress is just a really big feature of the English language, and you can hear that musicality whenever you listen to someone speaking English. It's essential in order to add impact and clarity, and also it's much more difficult to follow people who are not using it. The listener has to do that extra work to find out what matters in your sentences. It also carries meaning which goes beyond the words themselves: contrast, emotion, intention. And this link with the schwa sound is crucial. When unstressed words are reduced, the sentence gains rhythm. If every word is pronounced fully and equally, that rhythm disappears. Madhuri said, English is a stress-timed language. So mastering this sentence stress and reduction is really one of the most important steps towards sounding fluent, being easily understood, and also improving your listening comprehension. So you have to realize that stress is not kind of an added luxury. It's just central to how English works. And for listening, stress acts as a filter. It tells you where the meaning is. As a native speaker, we don't listen to every word. We don't process every word equally. We really follow those stressed words and we reconstruct the message from there. That's why fast spoken English is much easier to understand once you start listening for and hearing stress patterns rather than trying to listen to all the individual words. For speaking, stress controls how your message is interpreted. It shapes clarity, emphasis, and rhythm. Even with accurate grammar and vocabulary, speech without stress sounds quite flat, it's harder to follow, lacks impact. With the right stress patterns, the same sentence becomes clearer, more natural, and much more impactful. So, to improve, your focus needs to really shift from grammar rules to how English is spoken, by English speakers. So the more you listen to English native speakers and pay attention to the rhythm rather than trying to catch every word, and pay attention to how native speakers are using this sentence stress and word stress, the easier it will be for you to understand and also to improve your own output. So you could practice with it, starting by stressing content words, reducing function words. That's already, just that is going to really give you rhythm in your speech. And then you could practice using contrast, so shifting stress in the same sentence to change meaning. If you sample it and practice it, you'll really start to do it automatically, because you're going to notice lots of other people using it, and once you're aware of the fact that it's a thing, you'll see it everywhere. Remember, your goal isn't to sound perfect, it's just to make it easier for people to understand you and also to improve your pronunciation. I hope you enjoyed this little recording.